Hey guys, how's it going and welcome back. Well, today we're going to talk to you about bulk fill air guns and how they actually work in reality. So, we're going to put on the chopping block first the Diana Trail Scout. A guy got on my video on the Trail Scout on one of them, because I have both versions, 177 and 22, and we're kind of bantering back and forth about all this pressure system, this and that, and talking about this running it on a one single bottle, and I'm telling him that it ain't going to happen. And it's not. I mean, Diana does give us the instructions on how to do one single bottle, and it's supposed to work, but it actually doesn't. Did anybody at Diana actually test this? Raise a hand. Oh, I don't see any, because there isn't any. Nobody thought this one through. Myself and other YouTubers have tried to run a single bottle according to Diana's instructions. It does not work. And there's a reason for that. Okay? You have a air rifle with a tube yay long to fit 3 bottles plus the coupler collar in that pierces 2. And of course you still have a lot of empty space left. And of course you have that valve that has to get gas in it as well, right? So it's kind of like, let me think. I got 12 grams. This is a 12 gram bottle. They're saying you can run 1. Not going to happen. I mean, I've chopped these suckers open on a lathe, and there ain't a lot of stuff that actually is fitting inside this thing, okay? So by the time you get that volume and that pressure exhausted out of this, and you're in a tube yay long, you're going to have to also have 2 dead bottles in the gun, because otherwise you can't even pierce this one, right? So you got to have 2 dead bottles, 1 live bottle in the very front, of course, or it doesn't actually matter where you put it, it's still going to get emptied out inside. Any empty bottles will get gas put back into them. All right, plus all that empty space as well. Everything gets equalized out. By the time this sucker is exhausted, you're not firing a pellet out of that gun. And if you do manage to get a pellet out, you're probably going to be able to watch it drop about 15 feet in front of you. Okay, it is just not going to do. And yet they say you can use 1 bottle to have less shot count and still save on gas. No, you can't. It doesn't work. We've all tried this. It doesn't work. Okay? Because I don't care that you got 800 pounds per square inch of pressure in this little vessel. That's what's in this. Okay? You're trying to basically get this to go into this. Okay? But in actuality, much longer and skinnier. Okay? This is not going to go well for you. Okay? It doesn't work that way. Because there's no real pressure left. Right? By the time you empty this out, there's no pressure left. Not enough to fire a pellet anyways properly. But you're definitely going to have to fire the daylights out of that gun till this has absolutely 0 left in that tube before you can unscrew that cap again safely. And the key word is safely. Trust me, things can go wrong. Not that it has on me, but I do know. So realistically, you need 3 bottles for full power of the gun, full shot count. Now, could you run 2 bottles plus 1 empty bottle? In theory, yes. Okay, that's in theory. We will try that this spring, because I'm actually kind of curious now that I've had to do this video as to what the gun would actually react like with 2 full bottles and 1 empty bottle. Because I've tried the other way and it doesn't work. So we'll have to see. We'll revisit that this spring. I want to do it when it's a nice hot day too outside, and we'll crony it and do it all outdoors kind of thing. Because right now it's winter time in Canada, which sucks. I hate winter so bad. Anyways, so there currently is no other way to put gas into the Dianas other than the bottles. Okay. Now the QB78 uses 2 bottles. Okay. Now, doesn't matter if you're running the 177 version or the 22 cal version, you will get really super massively mentally high shot count on the 177 version. I have, because I had that gun twice, and yeah, I'm not buying another one until I can actually get a machine shop going again, because the 177 version, I don't know what it is, but I've gotten 2 lemons, and I just kind of like said that's enough. My 22 cal is still going strong. I've only had to replace 1 seal, and that's the cap seal, and that's it. So I put a new cap seal in it about a month ago, and it's holding fine. And I've shot the living daylights out of that gun, and it is staying together great. But the QB is a bulk fill system in multi-levels, okay? You can go and you can put your normal 2 bottles in there, they both ignite, fills up the tube, boom, you get X amount of shots, okay? Usually it's about 65 shots average. Not all 65 are going to be the same power, because only a couple of them are going to be very similar in power, plus or minus a few FPS, and then it slowly starts to peter off, okay? Very slowly, but it does. But you do get a really good shot count and good horsepower to that gun. No problem. Even after 30 shots, I've still gotten amazing speed out of that gun. It's just really a nice gun. But that's one way where it works like the Diana, except it uses 2 instead of 3 bottles. So why Diana went with 3 bottles over 2, I'll never know, because 2 bottles works just great in the QB. So 2 bottles in theory should work great in the Diana, or will it? Because it has more tube to fill now. Anyways, we'll see. But the other alternative to bulk filling the QB is there's a bulk fill cap you can get, so you don't need to throw in any bottles anymore. So you just throw in this cap, screw it in, take off the little brass screw, screw on your tank, fill the sucker up, and away you go. And you're good for a whack load of shots and good horsepower and blah, blah, blah. That was the whole idea between bulk filling it. Higher shot count and also more consistent speeds. Now, I've tried this on the QBs in the past and had a bad experience with it. Maybe it was something I did wrong, I don't know, but I will revisit that again because I'm kind of curious to see nowadays if it was really me or not, that just should have left the tank on the gun longer maybe, I don't know. That could have been the problem. But nonetheless, I did have a bad experience with it. But there's another way to do it, and that's to run a remote line off that cap with a tank. And, you know, so you have a 20-ounce tank on your hip like paintballers. You know, they have those big tanks on their guns or on their hips or whatever, right? So run a remote line with a tank, which is another way, because even more shot count and even cheaper to run the gun on C02. Just a little bit more bulky and stuff to carry around. But it's kind of up to you how you want to do things. So with that, every time you bulk fill a system with 12-gram bottles, they empty out, they fill up empty space, pressure drops, okay? Now you're still going to get good shot count because you have, you know, volume there, which is good. You need volume, but you're not running 800 psi anymore. You don't have the access that 800. It's actually dropped down now. And every time you shoot the gun, you lose pressure and volume, right? It's not the same consistent pressure all the time, right? Because if it was the same pressure and you're getting the same volume into the valve every single time, in theory, then you should have the exact same shot count, plus or minus maybe 2 or 3 FPS for every single shot throughout the entire cycle of the CO2 gas that's in there. And it does not happen. So therefore, factual information, kids, as soon as you pierce those 3 bottles that each have 800 psi in them, yeah, you're not getting 2400 psi, so don't think like that. You're not multiplying here, okay? You are getting volume. Yes, you are getting a lot more volume, but still in that tube, the amount of volume, space that you're filling up is not a whole lot of space you're filling, but it is enough space that it's probably the equivalent of an actual, what would be a 4th bottle, which doesn't exist. So that's why you get a pressure drop, because you have all that empty space to fill. Because all 3 bottles, they're emptying out and they're going, you know, and then everything has to equalize. So basically, pierce the sucker, put the gun in the corner for a couple hours because you've just frozen all the bottles, which affects shot speed, by the way, and shot count. And then once everything's back to normal room temperature again, then go out and shoot the sucker and take about 10 or 20 seconds between shots. And then see how your gun reacts differently than what you would normally do with just pierce, go, shoot, and have fun. And see what happens. You should see a noticeable difference to a certain extent. But you are still getting a pressure drop every time you shoot that gun. Because you're using gas, you're losing gas. Hello, pressure drops. Okay? So, bulk fill. 1 bottle goes in. Rattle. You hear that rattle. Okay? My mic is actually to my right. 2nd bottle goes in. I can wiggle that just on the top. So we have some airspace to fill up. Okay? Now how these go in, they go in back to back. So we have airspace. We have airspace slop space. We have the space in the front. Okay, whatever is there. We have space in the back of the cap here where it's going to be pierced. we screw this all together. Now, with this system, you screw this in first to pierce the bottle. You'll hear it piss once it's pierced the bottle. And you just screw it in snugly. You don't back it off after. You just screw it in, it empties. No worries. This bottle only gets pierced in the front once you've screwed it in all the way firmly. I did find out that even in the Air Javelin and the MCX, I have to actually tighten this in a couple more turns, snugger, to get that front bottle to properly pierce. Once you do that, you get really good shot count, and it's going to last for X amount of shots. This is 24 grams, right, for 2 bottles. But emptied out into all this, volume is kind of split up, right, and pressure drops. Therefore, speed gets affected using this, but it's more cost effective, okay? You're not going to get that many shots. Out of the Air Javelin, you get 9 to 11 shots out of this. In cold weather, I think it was about 8-degree weather I was doing this in, I got about 9 out of this. Warmer weather, I got 11, okay? In the SIG, I can't remember exactly what I got. I have videos on this. The SIG and the Air Javelin normally use this big 88 or 90 gram bottle. This is actually the 90. This gets you about 250 shots out of the SIG, or 27 really good shots out of the Javelin, and then it dissipates until you hit the 40th shot in really hot weather. In cooler weather, you're not going to get 40 shots out of this puppy out of the Air Javelin, because the colder it is outside, the colder the CO2 is, pressure drops even more so because you're blowing out more liquid than you are gas. Okay, so when you rapid fire a gun and you're wondering why your hand is now frozen on your gun, it's because you rapid fire and you're expelling liquid like crazy instead of gas. So your shot count is less, your speed takes a massive hit because you're also causing what's called valve lock. And you're blowing ice cubes into your valve, rapid firing, and it takes up all that space inside the valve, being ice, and it's going to take a while for it to thaw out before it gets power back again, okay, because then you go back to shooting gas instead of liquid, right? And so rapid firing any gun is never a good idea when it's running CO2 power or any kind of propane or green gas, that sort of stuff. Now, this is another third resolve. Now, with the Air Javelin, you put one 12-gram CO2 bottle in here, facing up, okay, because it's going to get pierced from here. Put this in your gun first. Now, you can use this in the SIG as well. And the shot count isn't that great out of the SIG with this. The SIG is a gas hog, just like the Javelin. The Javelin's an even worse gas hog than the SIG MCX, okay? The MCX is a pellet gun, the Air Javelin shooting arrows, right? So this thing here gets me 6 really good shots, being my last shot's about 180 to 190 psi, feet per second, 180 to 190 feet per second on the very last 6th shot out of this on the Javelin. And there is no more gas left, by the way, on that 6th shot. It's done, okay? Whereas I don't get as many shots out of the SIG because it's also a gas hog, but I also get a very big loss in speed, okay? And it's kind of like, really sucks. But I've done testing on my channel, so if you look up the SIG and you look up the Javelin, you'll see that I've used all 3 of these power plants on the guns, and you'll know how they're working. But this is not any kind of a bulk fill. This is just an answer to saving gas on your SIG or saving gas on your Javelin, you know. And, you know, I mean, who wants to fire 40 shots out of this on arrows? Okay, who wants to shoot 250 pellets to empty this? Because these guns are both advised that when you're not using them, make sure that you exhaust any leftover gas, because you don't want to leave gas in it on long term, because that can harm the gun or seals, okay? So it's kind of like one of those things where you might want to listen to that. And I've talked about that in other videos when it came to making impressions on a seal. And I'm starting to actually practice with a lot of my newer guns, not leaving gas in them anymore, with the exception of course, I'll leave gas in a QB. I'll leave gas even in a Diana, because I don't have to worry about front and back piercing seals, because there are none. You know, the 2240, yeah, I'm still leaving gas in my 2240 all the time. That valve can withstand anything you want to throw at it. so I'm not worried about it. And because I use the same gas bottles on particular guns, that's why I will leave gas in them. But guns where I'm not sure, I will not leave gas in, or just not leave gas in at all, because the manufacturer says don't, or it will do this, that I will actually listen to that. And sometimes I don't listen to it just to experiment, but I usually do that on cheaper guns just because I don't care. You know, and then this way I find out, and then when somebody says, can I leave gas long term? I can either say yes or no, and if I found any ill effects to it. Anyways, that's the short and curlies, guys, of how bulk fill systems work. So when you're bulk filling with guns, or have a gun that is a bulk fill system, whether it's, you know, filling up an empty tube, or whether you're using bottles to make a bulk fill thing happen, like the QBs and the Dianas, you know, there are things that are involved here, and physics is physics, and you can't ignore it. You lose pressure. Even though you're trying to have volume there, you're also losing volume, because now you've taken 36 grams of CO2 in a Diana, and you've expelled gas into the valve, you've expended gas into the rest of the tube, and that is not giving you extra volume. Okay, you still have 36 grams, but now that it's so spread out, it drops the pressure too far. Okay, and in some cases it drops it in a way that it's usable, yes, because the 3 bottles are usable. 1 bottle is not usable in the Diana. 2 bottles perfectly usable in a QB. 1 bottle, haven't tried it in a QB yet. I should actually try that as an experiment too this spring. We'll see how 1 live and 1 dead bottle works in the QB, what kind of speed we get, what kind of shot count we get. And if my theory is right, it's going to suck either way, because I know that when I take 12 and I'm trying to fill up the space, I'm going to take a huge drop in pressure, which means very low shot count is going to happen. And so is very low speeds as a result too, because I can't fill 800 psi into a big tube out of a small little tiny vessel. It does not work that way. And that's what a lot of you may have thought was the right thing, but you know, this is the way it is. You know, I have no other way to explain it without getting really technical and charting it out, and that's going to mess a lot of you up. So this is the layman's term video of it. So take it as you will. That's how things happen in these particular guns. Things go differently when you're working with guns that are not a bulk fill system. You know, like I said, the SIG, it's not a bulk fill. Neither is the Javelin. The Javelin does do its optimal top best with this for shot count and giving you your highest horsepower out of the gun. Okay, same as the SIG would. Highest shot count, best horsepower per shot for a lot of shots. This system didn't work so well in the SIG. Well, neither one of these worked the greatest, but they both work really well in the Javelin. Okay, now you do see a couple of really good shots out of the Javelin that are going to be like basically full power out of either one of these. But you're going to see 6 shots here, and you're going to see 9 to 11 depending on the temperature. This would be somewhere between 4 to 6 depending on the temperature. But you know, the Javelin uses the gas properly, which is really good. It actually uses it the best out of any CO2 gun so far, because you get it right down to that last shot. You know, it's like it's emptied. It's like great, fantastic. Wish the Diana did that. Because the problem with the Dianas is when you run out of gas, right? You gotta dry fire that gun like crazy to expel the leftover volume, even though there's not much pressure there. There's enough pressure that you do not want to try unscrewing that cap, because that is dangerous. Okay, there's enough pressure there to really hurt you bad if you did that. But at the same time, you know, there's not a lot of volume with that pressure. It's just it's got to get expelled, right? And so you have to shoot the gun. I think it took me close to 100 shots to empty the 177 because, you know, it just didn't have enough pressure there, right? But it had enough spread out volume with that pressure that it I don't know how you can explain this, but there's not a lot of physical pressure, but enough pressure you cannot unscrew that cap. I tried it and I stopped about 1/4 of an inch of thread, and I'm like, this is not going to go well if I keep going. You know, so I just said, all right, I can't screw it back in now because it won't let me, because it's shoving bottles this way, right? So I just dry fired it, and I don't know, it took about 60, 80 shots, in the 177 to completely empty it. The 22 didn't take as much because its valve works a little bit differently. It seems so anyways. It's using more gas per shot, obviously, so because 22. So it didn't take as many to dry fire it. But either one of them, you still have to dry fire the daylights out of them. And same with the QBs. They need to be dry fired down to a point where you can actually start to unthread it with your hand a bit. And there is a little pisser hole usually where you can just go, okay, it's starting to pee out, and then just leave it there for 5 minutes and it'll empty out. Otherwise, I mean, just keep dry firing it and do whatever and it'll empty out. But there's always gas there that's not enough pressure to fire a pellet, but there's enough pressure there just to be a little nasty to you. So you've got to dry fire these things out and get them emptied out. Anyways, that's all I got for you guys on this one. If you have questions, feel free to ask. I'll do, as always, the best I can to answer them for you. And if I can avoid writing a book, I'll just do a video. So, because to me it's a lot easier to explain something in a video than it is to write down in text anyway. So, you know, at least sometimes. Especially if it's going to be something long that I have to explain, I'd rather just do a video on it for you. And that makes more sense, then everybody benefits. Anyways, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Ciao.